This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Africa coronavirus cases surpass 53,000. South Africa tops the list with almost 8,000 as other countries see a spike after partial easing of restrictions. Businesses gradually reopen as restrictions ease in Nigeria. And in our continuing series on the impact of COVID-19 on the continent, we highlight how people are learning new skills during the lockdown. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua live in Nairobi. Uche Okoronkwo joins me now with your business headlines.
Thank you, Mahia. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. The World Bank is concerned about massive capital outflows from emerging markets. And African nations are set to benefit from additional IMF financing to deal with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, more on that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to you, Mahia.
Thanks, Uche. Well, we begin with the latest COVID-19 figures across the world. Confirmed cases have surpassed 3.7 million. The death toll is at more than 250,000 as it stands. The United States has registered over 2,000 deaths in the past day. Its total now tops 73,000. The UK has recorded over 600 new deaths, reaching a grim milestone of more than 30,000 in total. That is the second highest in the world after the United States. Spain has seen the most infections in Europe with over 220,000. Italy ranks second both in the number of cases and deaths on the continent. Russia saw its daily infections grow by more than 11,000 on Wednesday. It has more than 177,000 cases. The Chinese mainland has reported 2 new cases, both were Chinese citizens returning from abroad. Well, let's now get the latest COVID-19 figures in Africa. There are now more than 53,000 confirmed cases of the coronavirus and over 18,000 recoveries across the continent. The death toll currently stands at over 2,000. Egypt is the hardest hit on the continent with 7,981 COVID-19 cases. In Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo has reported 66 new cases. The country is still struggling to contain the Ebola virus that has taken a toll on the nation for 2 years. Elsewhere in East Africa, Kenya has confirmed 25 new cases. The country's new COVID-19 tally now stands at 607. Kenya's Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe is urging Kenyans to work from home to help curb the spread of the virus. Well, tonight, health authorities here in Kenya are increasingly concerned about the spread of COVID-19 following the easing of some restrictions. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the country has passed the 600 mark, even as the government locked down parts of Nairobi and Mombasa cities. CGTN's Robert Nagila has the details.
One by one, vehicles trying to leave Nairobi's Eastleigh district are turned back. Go back, this officer tells a motorist. On Wednesday, the government imposed a lockdown on the suburbs of Eastleigh in Nairobi and Old Town in the coastal city of Mombasa in an effort to control a dramatic escalation in COVID-19 cases. This is one of 4 entry points into Eastleigh. No one's allowed to enter or leave for the next fortnight as the government seeks to control the spread of COVID-19 within the community. Not even human traffic is allowed through. All shops and restaurants have been ordered shut. Of the 45 confirmed cases announced Tuesday, 29 were from Nairobi. All of them from this neighborhood. But if the lockdown was meant to scare Kenyans into action, it did not work. Across Nairobi, more and more businesses have reopened despite the government urging Kenyans to stay at home. The street vendor says mounting bills forced him back to work.
Mwanzo kabisa nilikuwa nimefunga.
Initially I had closed, but I was forced to reopen because the situation at home was dire. Food, bills, rents, loans, all have to be paid. And if you remain at home, you can't feed your family.
Google's latest weekly COVID-19 community mobility report, released Monday, says there's been a 16% increase in people accessing their places of work in the last 7 days. Despite the risks, for filmmaker Billy Namule, going back to work boiled down to one fact.
Survival, basically. You have to go back to work because the government is not providing anything, basically. It's like they're not giving us any incentives to stay at home. So what are we going to do? You have to eat at the end of the day.
Many say, despite the threat of COVID-19, a lack of government assistance has forced them out of their homes.
I have no food in the house, and the landlord wants his rent. But the government is telling us to stay at home, but they're not assisting us. We're suffering.
Despite the rate of people going to work still below the normal baseline, it was large enough to get police back on the roads to control traffic. And now, the concern is, whatever gains the country had made in the last month against COVID-19 may already have been wiped out in the last few days. Wabat Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Nigeria recently eased its 5-week COVID-19 lockdown in the cities of Lagos, Abuja, and the state of Ogun. The government and the informal sector have gradually reopened their doors for business, but is Nigeria ready for the relaxation of the lockdown measures? CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports.
Health screenings get underway as senior government workers arrive at their offices in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. It's one of the mandatory measures to be observed as the government eases a lockdown that's lasted several weeks. Also compulsory is the wearing of face masks in public places and hand washing or sanitizing. Only the government and a few businesses have been allowed to open premises for a few hours. ICT solution provider DJing is relieved to be back in business.
It was tough, but we were able to scale through because there were a lot of limitations that we were not used to. You couldn't move. It affected our businesses, a lot of customers had issues we needed to sort, we couldn't sort.
But the fear of the virus is still very strong here.
We are happy to be back in business and trying to gain our stand again. But there's still the phobia, the fear for the coronavirus out there. There are speculations that it's likely to spread faster than it was where we are in lockdown.
Reopening the Nigerian economy is seen as crucial because the informal sector plays a major role. But what is worrying is the nation's preparedness to manage a crisis if the outbreak escalates.
Generally speaking, you really cannot say that you want to open up an economy and at the same time prevent spread. I think the level of information out there is still very, very it's still very low. But if you see how people engage or interact in the markets, you see how people interact in the banking halls, if you see how people interact even at ATM queues, shows that we are not even ready, we are not even sure of what is befalling us as a country or as a people.
For now, the government is still testing the waters. Selected businesses are open between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and an 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew is in place. All schools remain shut and social gatherings banned. However, the government has warned any surge in cases of COVID-19 could lead to a total lockdown. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
The Tunisian Justice Ministry is going digital. The move aims to reduce the risk of coronavirus infections during trials. Public court sessions will now be conducted via live stream. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi reports.
Thoureya Jribi is the first female justice minister in Tunisia, and she's part of another first for the country: public court cases held remotely and streamed online. She noted the project aims to modernize the country's legal system, especially during the pandemic.
This live stream aims to prevent infection with coronavirus, the transport of prisoners to accelerate the pace of cases for people in custody, as well as to implement bilateral and multilateral international agreements which have been ratified by the Tunisian government.
The president of the National Bar Association of Tunisia declared that live streaming court cases guarantees the rights of defendants. The majority of lawyers and judges say they are supporting this new system.
The issue of physical presence of the defendant and his interrogation has been raised by the law experts. We have reacted positively to the project because it is efficient in these extreme sanitary and security circumstances.
The technical assistance is ensured by Tunisian engineers. A new and highly secured platform has been created by the Ministry of Justice to provide an accurate and timely communication between the court and the central prison in Tunis.
We have equipped a hall in the prison and the courtroom. Then the two halls were connected to the same network in the central distribution center. We create a virtual and online hall and court where all the steps of a normal case are available.
The Justice Ministry says the new experience will be available in other courts in the next 2 months. The court's records will also be digitized. The justice system in Tunisia has been on hold for months since a nationwide lockdown began in March to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission. Now, with the government easing restrictions, judges and lawyers say that all courts should implement physical distancing during the pandemic and that all cases should be streamlined online. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Now, a leading South African medical school is looking for faster and cheaper ways to test for COVID-19. The number of coronavirus cases in the country is heading towards 8,000, and infections could increase as winter approaches. Wits University's medical faculty is looking at alternatives to make testing more accessible. CGTN's Julie Shire now reports.
The world is yet to come up with a rapid coronavirus test kit that works. PCR remains the #1 testing method, but it's time-consuming and expensive. South Africa's Wits University is taking an in-depth look at alternatives on the market.
Some of them are coming from China, there's some from Europe, and there's some from the United States. And what we at WITS are doing is we are trying to create panels so that we can take some of these rapid tests that have been identified across the world and see which of them actually work.
The medical faculty is looking for 300 volunteers. Blood and saliva samples will be used to test for antibodies and determine the accuracy of the kits.
The people that we need to come forward are people who have tested positive on PCR. And the other group of people that we're looking at are people who are staying in the same house as somebody who has tested positive for coronavirus, because obviously those are interesting people for us to evaluate to see whether they've got some type of a protective antibody response or not.
Rapid testing has worked well for South Africa in the past to diagnose TB and HIV.
That has been really a key pillar in terms of getting those epidemics under control. So I think in terms of HIV and TB, we really have led the fight in Africa, certainly, of testing, treating, dealing with complications from the infections. And I think because of that, we're actually very well placed to deal with these new emerging pathogens.
The study may take a while depending how quickly volunteers come forward, but it does present a glimmer of hope to make testing more widely available.
South Africa has used a combination of testing and community screening to fight the outbreak, but it needs to ramp up its response with a peak expected many months down the line. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now let's turn to South Sudan, where a man has embarked on a mission to correct misinformation that's being shared about the coronavirus. The country's health ministry says misinformation on social media about COVID-19 has led to people flouting measures put in place to curb the spread of the virus. CGTN's Patrick Oyet has the details.
Nelson Kwaje created hashtag 211check, which collects information on the coronavirus, verifies it, corrects misinformation and then publishes it online. Nelson says his group is targeting all those who use social media in South Sudan. He says that's because most of the misinformation is over the internet. Nelson is part of a WhatsApp group which has more than 120 people.
Right now, so the WhatsApp group receives daily misinformation that is spreading around, and we take that information and we verify it. Then we publish that also on the website and also on the various social media platforms, telling people, hey, this is not the case.
However, the rumors and theories about COVID-19 are still spreading and worrying many too.
There were some rumors like corona is a sickness for for white people. I mean, it does not affect black people. Also, there are some rumors that more especially in our country, in South Sudan, that this country is very hot. Actually, corona cannot reach to South Sudan.
People say about the corona that if you take bitter lemons, you are not affected. That the bitter lemons cure corona, and if you take a cigarette, it also do the same. And furthermore, that if you also take alcohol regularly or too much taking of alcohol, it also avoid you from getting corona.
Hashtag 211check has now expanded its activities to Ethiopia and Cameroon, where it is trying to combat both hate speech and correct any misinformation on COVID-19. Hashtag 211check says since the outbreak of the coronavirus, it has now trained more than 500 people through workshops and reached 300,000 more through the internet with correct information on the COVID-19, and that it is targeting to reach every part of South Sudan. Medical personnel here say the misinformation means some people are ignoring the health ministry's guidelines on social distancing and staying home.
The other day, I went to one of the markets in Juba. The place was congested. I asked those who were there why they were not following the social distancing guidelines. One of them told me there is no coronavirus. I told him it's there. He then asked me that if it's really there, why are people not dying of it in South Sudan? Look at these kinds of thinking.
The health ministry says the problem being created by the misinformation is so serious that if not corrected soon, it could lead to wider spread of COVID-19 in the country. At the moment, hashtag 211check is the only non-governmental organization trying to support the health ministry in correcting misinformation in the country. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
You're watching Africa Live. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for us to take a short break. Here's what's coming up. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced many people across Africa to stay at home. After the break, we'll highlight how people are learning new skills during the lockdown.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there. To see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you. All around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Let's now turn our focus to our continuing series on the impact of the coronavirus pandemic in Africa. As people stay home due to the various restrictions, many are using their time to learn new skills. Today, we highlight how people are learning their new skills to improve their lives and those of others. Well, we start in South Africa, where one young family in Cape Town took their downtime as a chance to be productive citizens. They started using 3D printing technology to fight the spread of the coronavirus. CGTN's Travis Andrews has more with this report.
For many people in South Africa, the national lockdown has brought a lot of frustration. Staying indoors to fight the spread of COVID-19 has been a difficult pill to swallow. Not so for the Nelson family, who have shaken off boredom and pursued a new skill to assist in the fight against the spread of the coronavirus, and they're using a set of 3D printers as a weapon in their arsenal.
From the start of lockdown, we were actually bored, just lying around, and then my daddy came up with us. We saw on the news that they were making the masks, the face masks, and then my daddy actually went on YouTube and he looked at the other models, and then he decided we have 3D printers. So it's standing there, what he's gonna do with it. So he decided he's gonna set it up, and we'll get the people just to help us.
Sisters Marte and Mate have had to learn how to make the protection face masks from scratch, with the help of their father to get the product to a safe and suitable quality. The 3D printers were repurposed from another project which was meant to make drone parts. Now though, not only are they making life-saving equipment, they're also giving these lot a valuable new skill which they can use in the future.
I didn't know about 3D printing, and I now learned about it, and I can take the Alice bands apart, and I can now make the actual face mask.
So far, over 400 masks have been made in their home in the Cape Flat suburb of Mitchell's Plain. But much more are being made every single day because the demand is so high. For the Nelson family, the hard work doesn't just stop with the printing of these masks, because every single one of them has to be hand-delivered within the community.
We handed a few to the neighbors, and they were really thankful because there is people that they can't afford the actual face visors. So we decided we will just give it out. Instead of the people that don't have, what are they going to use?
And when the delivery is up, it's back home powering their 3D printers to churn out even more homemade masks, so that more and more poor people can have a fighting chance against contracting the coronavirus. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Well, still in South Africa, CGTN Sumitra Naidu speaks to two well-known personalities in Johannesburg who are doing something different to generate an income.
Has officially been... Iman Ropetti is a well-known media personality in South Africa. She recently left her media jobs in TV and radio in order to pursue her own business interests. I love you. Unfortunately, she's been unable to do anything since COVID-19.
I've been booked for a number of international speaking engagements. I'm a conversation moderator and facilitator. And one by one, these events started being cancelled since the beginning of the year. And soon the panic started to set in because this is my bread and butter. And suddenly it was all just disappearing. So it was incredibly stressful. I mean, I spent a lot of nights thinking, what am I going to do?
But Ropetti is not giving up.
And thus we've now started to migrate my business from the linear space into the virtual space.
She's using her skills as a media personality to share her story with others. She's also giving back with inspiring messages.
Hey beloved, it's me Iman. Thank you for watching. I think it's important for us to dwell in a realm of optimism and possibility. And then I thought, let's do something useful as well, something in the public service. And so Iman's Home was born. And it is this composite of information, some fun, what we're doing at home, and also some of my mom's recipes. And I wanted it to be a love letter to my fellow countrymen and women.
Today I prepared something for the family. Tumi Sol, an attorney, is trying his hand at cooking. He's always left the kitchen to his wife, who is a pretty good cook. But he thought, why not learn a new skill while stuck at home?
I really haven't cooked as much. I mean, I would do the dishes and just do breakfast here and there. It was just recently after the lockdown that I started developing an interest. I think people on Twitter were posting some plates and some recipes, and I then thought that why can't I try? And what cooking really has done has now gotten me to the kitchen. I spend time there with the family, and the little girls love it. It is something, in my view, that it can take me a little further, but not necessarily as a chef, but as something that I can just spend time on.
Sole is not ready to hang up his court gown just yet, but he is enjoying his new skill.
All right. And then
Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, in Uganda, baking seems to be a popular activity for some of those in quarantine or lockdowns. But as CGTN's Leon Senyange reports, knitting and art are also gaining popularity in the capital, Kampala.
Welcome to my kitchen. I am going to be making salty bread tonight.
Making the best out of the lockdown. Now off work and stuck at home, Susan Nalugo is trying her hand at baking.
Because I have extra time on me, I decided to learn how to make bread, and this is what I'm doing.
It's a skill she has learned from YouTube, one that needs practice and patience. Susan describes her first attempt as a disaster.
The first time actually did not turn out good. It was like a block, but edible. I could eat it.
Hikma Nabisui normally works in a clothes store. Now she is doing arts and crafts. And she is already making money selling her home decorations.
The kind of people I sell my art to are friends so far. It is through WhatsApp, sending them what you have.
Hikma believes this is a new beginning, one she hopes will earn her more money after the lockdown ends.
Being it's something you can easily do in a short period of time, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't continue.
Whether it's crafts or cooking, more people across Uganda are trying their hand at new things. Some of these activities have come as stress relievers. Being able to pick up a skill already seems a productive way for some people to utilize the time spent in their homes while the lockdown continues. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Well, as the world battles the COVID-19 pandemic, ventilators, the machines required to help critically ill patients to breathe, have become harder to secure. In Kenya, 2 young innovators have created a prototype out of locally available materials, which they hope to develop into life-saving machines. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reports.
The bug puffs up and then deflates, mimicking the process of human breathing. And breathing is exactly what its creators built it for. This is a prototype for a ventilator built by 2 innovative young minds in Kenya. Paul Karaoke and Samuel Cairo met on Facebook and bonded over their shared love of electronics and electronic engineering. So when COVID-19 was declared a pandemic and countries began to scramble to secure ventilators to help critically ill patients breathe, the 2 saw an opportunity. They decided to build their own ventilator.
My friend had been working on some diagrams, but his were a bit sophisticated, and we needed something that we could do with locally available parts and something that could not be expensive.
The duo settled on a simple design and then asked the public to donate funds to help them attain their goal. They raised just under $1,000 and used the money to buy parts for their machine. Their ventilator comprises a wiper motor, a crankshaft, a bag that traps air, and a car battery, among other parts. Traditionally, a ventilator works by moving breathable air into the lungs, aiding patients who are physically unable to breathe on their own. But a hospital-grade ventilator is a costly machine, costing even up to $50,000. As COVID-19 continues to spread across the globe, every country is now racing to manufacture its own ventilators affordably. And it is for this reason that the homemade ventilators caught the eye of Kenya's Ministry of Industrialization. Shortly after posting their prototype on social media, the 2 innovators met with the Cabinet Secretary for Industrialization, Betty Maina, to chart the way forward. They are now part of a team working under the Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute to develop a ventilator design for use across the country. It is a point of pride.
I saw this as a chance to redeem the image of the youth of Kenya or as Africans, that it's not that we are waiting for anybody to do it. We can do it ourselves. So, and we can start the lowest with what we have.
And it raises the youth's hopes about what the future holds.
In the future, we have hopes of making more innovations, not just the ventilators and that, because the industry of Kenya is still very, 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 very far, or rather, very, very at its infancy. So with people like me and others, we can actually build Kenya.
It is a bold vision, and it starts here with a dream to save lives and a bug puffing up like an indrawn, life-saving breath of air. Wilkisa Nyabo, CGTN.
Well, it's time to look into all the day's business. Uche is here with more. Uche?
Thank you, Mahia. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. The World Bank is concerned about massive capital outflows from emerging markets. An African nation set to benefit from additional IMF financing to deal with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Now, emerging markets across the world have witnessed a massive outflow of capital since the beginning of this year. This, of course, has been made worse by the coronavirus pandemic. That's according to the International Finance Corporation, an arm of the World Bank. The private sector financier is also expressing concern that the situation may prevail into next year.
If you look at production, employment, trade, all are down. And I worry greatly for emerging markets. We have already seen somewhere in the range of $100 billion leave emerging markets since the beginning of January. And we're estimating that foreign direct investment will be down 40% in both 2020 and 2021 from its base in 2019. I would start by saying it doesn't matter whether you're in a developed country or a developing country. Locking down an economy creates insolvency. And what we're going to see is a rise in unemployment and a loss of jobs, liquidity issues at the firm level, and the longer the lockdown lasts, the more probability of insolvency.
Meanwhile, the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund has approved funding to support various nations in their response to the economic shock caused by the coronavirus. Now, Kenya will receive $739 million. Uganda will receive $481.5 million, while Zimbabwe will get a grant of $7 million. The funds were approved on Wednesday and are expected to help various nations revive their badly hurt sectors and also revive economic growth. The grant to Zimbabwe should help it fight the coronavirus and provide support to the already struggling economy and its food crisis. Now, Zimbabwe is not eligible for debt financing and forgiveness, as it is still in arrears of $1.2 billion to the World Bank, the African Development Bank, as well as the European Investment Bank. Moving on now, Nigeria will extend a ban on all flights by 4 weeks as part of measures to prevent the spread of the virus. While this Thursday would have marked the end of the current ban, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, told a regular briefing that there was need for an extension. Now, Mustafa also said an early assessment of the eased restrictions suggested that Nigerians were underestimating the virulent nature of the disease. He pointed to non-compliance with social distancing measures and the sharing of face masks. Now, Aviation Minister Hadi Sirika later said there was a need to train airline staff in safety measures before flights restarted. Africa's most populous nation has about 2,950 confirmed cases and has seen 98 deaths. Lockdown restrictions were eased on Monday in the country's commercial hub of Lagos and the capital, Abuja. Now, a South African company has come up with isolation pods for use by COVID-19 patients. The country has the highest infection rate on the continent, now nearing about 8,000. More than a quarter have recovered, but almost 150 deaths have been reported. As CGTN's Julie Shire reports, Oracle 3D specially designed pods are expected to ease any shortage of hospital beds.
South Africa has slowed the COVID-19 infection rate, partly thanks to a lockdown the government imposed early on. But authorities fear the worst is to come as some restrictions are eased and local transmissions increase. Warren Bosman's company, Oracle 3D, was already producing smoking and baby pods before the outbreak.
So about a year and a half ago, my daughter was born premature and contracted RSV, and we spent about 3 months in an isolation ward. And before this coronavirus came along, we were already practicing all the sanitizing methods and masks, and then obviously doing all the pods and that. It was kind of like a simple adjustment of just putting the two together and coming up with a solution that can contain the virus effectively.
Confirmed COVID-19 cases are rising daily, and the demand for hospital beds is growing. Specialized negative pressure rooms are needed to treat acute cases.
And these pods come at a negative pressure. So I'll just show you a little test. So if you pull the door open, you can actually see that it sucks closed. When you walk inside, the airflow in these units is very critical. So what you find is the air sucks from the front of the pod through to the back past the patient. And that is very critical so that doctors and nurses don't get affected or infected by the COVID-19 virus.
These self-isolation pods could potentially be a game changer when treating COVID-19 patients in South Africa, and they are in line with the World Health Organization specifications.
We had to value engineer the design to come up with a solution that can be made very cost effectively, that can flat pack and takes less than 45 minutes to assemble on site. There's a multitude of facilities that these can be fitted to. Any kind of expo center, even a marquee that's set up on a field. For example, for rural areas, you can fit easily 50 or 60 of these units inside with nurse stations, with a welcome counter, with the testing pods so that patients can be tested.
The company has been given the go-ahead to produce the first 300 pods. It's had interest from the United States, United Kingdom and Saudi Arabia, and may soon start exporting its latest product. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, let's stay in South Africa. Vodacom has finally gone live with 5G services in the country. Mobile operators in Africa's most industrialized economy have been waiting for over a year now to offer the cutting-edge technology. But due to the lack of spectrum, these services have been delayed, as CGTN Sumitra Naidu now reports.
The COVID-19 lockdown in South Africa caused a massive spike in internet connectivity. Since March, there's been a 250% increase in demand. To help ease the pressure on the networks, government released some spectrum.
The widespread rollout of 5G will support the South African government's fourth industrial revolution objectives. The president has previously outlined the need for South Africans to take advantage of technological advances to industrialize, pursue inclusive growth, and attract investment in the country.
The primary benefit of 5G for the consumer is that far more people will be able to connect to the same spectrum. The further benefit will be that the connection will be at a far higher speed and will have far more throughput. In other words, far more capacity to deliver content via that signal.
But the spectrum is temporary to ease the pressure during COVID-19. It's expected to go on auction later this year. South Africa is way behind in going digital. Analog television is still using up vital radio frequencies.
It's quite risky of the operators to offer long-term contracts via 5G because the chances are that after the end of May or perhaps June, that spectrum will be withdrawn again. But it does mean that the operators will have had a chance to test their networks and to be able to show the benefits of 5G connectivity.
Vodacom had launched 5G in Lesotho back in 2018 because the tiny kingdom had spectrum available. The same offering is now available in South Africa, but only in certain areas.
For now, Vodacom has gone live with 20 sites across Johannesburg, Pretoria and Cape Town. This means that Vodacom customers in those areas near these activated sites will get access to next generation services.
Vodacom 5G network, peak speeds in near ideal operating conditions should be close to 500 megabits per second download, and the average customer experience should be about 150 to 200 megabits per second download.
Vodacom customers with 5G-enabled devices and within a 5G coverage area are now able to access one of the fastest and most sophisticated network connections in Africa. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And on the international front, the U.S. Commerce Department is close to signing off on a new rule that will allow American companies to work with China's Huawei on setting standards for 5G networks. Now, two sources told Reuters that the rule essentially allows U.S. firms to participate in standards bodies where Huawei is also a member. The draft is under final review at the Commerce Department and, if cleared, will go to other agencies for approval. Now, this comes after the U.S. Commerce Department placed Huawei on its entity list last May, citing national security concerns. And that is all for now in Africa Live Biz. But coming up later on Global Business Africa, South African Airways to seize all flights from Friday, May 8th, as the government considers a rescue plan. Of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, it is back to you.
Thanks, Uche. Well, here's what's coming up after this short break. DJs go online to entertain their fans amid the coronavirus pandemic. Welcome back. Now, since COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic, social gatherings in most countries have been banned. That has adversely affected the entertainment industry. With South Africa currently in an extended lockdown, many in the sector are now looking at new ways of keeping their profiles alive. CGT and Sumitra Naidu tells us more on how disc jockeys are going virtual.
DJs who rely heavily on audiences are looking at new ways of entertaining. Virtual DJing is slowly becoming very popular in most South African households. With all events cancelled, local DJs are pushing live stream sessions on social media to keep their names out there.
For me, it's really tough because I'm self-employed and I don't have any income every month. I don't have other options because my thing is DJing. Roughly, I can say for a weekend, I make $150. So if I don't get bookings, I don't get money to support my family.
Music and dance lovers are getting hooked onto the trend, but the entertainers are not making money. Many of these artists, however, see the value of maintaining their visibility on social media.
Currently trying to push our Facebook live sets
So we are also trying to push content on our YouTube channels. So, but we are not there yet with following. Yeah, I'm not getting currency from that yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be better because what I can say is that I try to buy data so that I can have data to try and push my Facebook page so that after this lockdown, at least I can get a lot of bookings. It's just that I'm trying to push people must not forget about T-Men because of the lockdown.
While their work during the pandemic remains a struggle, these artists are trying to stay positive, and they're using their skills and talents to keep people entertained during this tough time. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg.
And coming up, it's time for the sports. Here's what's heading your way. South Africa stalwarts eye glorious Proteas swan song at 2020 ICC 2020 World Cup.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Welcome back. Let's begin with cricket. The ICC T20 Cricket World Cup in October looks set to be the final international tournament for several of South Africa's stalwarts. Stars like Dale Steyn and Imran Tahir, who have had a massive impact on the game globally, will bow out after stellar careers for the Proteas. CGTN CS Du Plessis takes a look at what made the pair so special.
Dale Steyn has been a thorn in the side of many international opponents since his debut in 2004. The 36-year-old fast bowler, who is South Africa's leading test wicket taker with 439 scalps, also boasts 196 ODI and 64 T20 wickets. The man known as the Palabora Express has certainly left an immeasurable impression on the game.
Just a fantastic bowler and an even better guy, and also he had that attitude, that's that sort of white line fever attitude, really, really chilled guy off the field, and then becomes a bit of a psycho when he gets on the field, and that's kind of what you want in a fast bowler. He had that sort of cutthroat attitude. If he got a sniff, I mean, that was probably his biggest strength. If he got a sniff, Dale had the ability to be able to change gears. He had everything. He's the best fast bowler I've ever seen.
He generally gets wickets with that new ball. Because he's got the ability to swing the ball, but also later in the day, he can come back even with that old ball and pick up wickets. And it's because of his fitness. He can run and he can bowl at the same speed. Often you see fast bowlers bowl at 145 kilometers per hour at the start of the day. Come the middle session and the end of the day, they're running at 135s. Now, the difference between 135s and 145s is massive because, the pace factor. And I think that's where Dale has really had the edge over a lot of bowlers. And also that's how he picked up a lot of wickets.
Imran Tahir, who at 41 continues to defy the laws of aging, made his international debut in 2011 and has been one of the first names on the team list in ODI and T20 cricket. His guile with ball in hand and passion for the game have made the crafty leg spinner a cult hero in the Rainbow Nation.
Comfortably the best swipe or spin bowler we've had in South Africa. He's got a lot of different types of deliveries. His googly is one of the best googlies in the world, and it's his main wicket taker, his main weapon. And very difficult to hit. You notice when guys go after him, most of the guys fail. So he's been phenomenal.
Tahir plans to retire at the end of the T20 World Cup in Australia later this year and will be sorely missed by the Proteas.
It will be a big loss. It will be bigger than Dale Steyn. It will probably be on the same level of losing a Jacques Kallis. And it will take possibly 5 years to recover.
Between them, they've taken over 1,000 international wickets and have had a major impact on cricket globally. Therefore, it's no secret that both Steyn and Tahir will be eager to make it to the T20 World Cup for one last hurrah and sign off their magnificent careers in ultimate style by claiming the Rainbow Nation's first major ICC title for 22 years. CS du Plessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
Well, we now shift to Uganda, where stadiums have fallen silent due to the COVID-19 lockdown. However, the management of the coronavirus pandemic in the country is giving hope that sports facilities there may be put to use sooner. CGTN's Leon Senyange reports.
Then and now, Mandela National Stadium, Uganda's biggest sports facility.
We're going to host the qualifiers for AFCON 2021, the national team, and also the league, the local league, of course, came to a halt because we also host the league matches twice in a week. So in effect, it means that once the activities or the events or the competitions are halted, it means we also have no business.
Thousands of fans often gather here for football matches. Athletics competition also pulls crowds. But with no sports activities now, it is a grim time for the sports facility.
We anticipate that it will hit us hard. We know for the period, for the month of March, April is also now gone. We don't know about May. So yes, it has hit us. That means we won't be earning monies to pay our staff. We won't be earning money to maintain the facility.
The Uganda government is expected to ease lockdown restrictions within days. That could open space for some sports activities to resume. Concerns remain.
Safety is very critical because much as we look out for fans who are rowdy, throwing stones, being abusive, but even the medical aspect can be a threat to the game. It can lead to death of fans, it can lead to death of players, it can lead to death of various stakeholders around sport.
Local federations are considering organizing competitions without funds. It's a decision many may have to weigh in on. The facility managers are optimistic of a post-coronavirus recovery. There will, however, be a lot of protection measures to put in place. It is a question of how well that will be managed. Leon Senyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Now, the German Bundesliga season